Okay, we have to prove that any subgroup of a cyclic group is a cyclic group. So let us see the solution. Let G be a cyclic group generated by A, that is this. It means that A is an element of G such that if we form the cyclic subgroup generated by A, then that cyclic subgroup becomes equal to G. Or in other words, it also means that every element in G is an integral power of A. Okay. Now we have to prove that every subgroup of G is cyclic. So let H be a subgroup of G. If it happens that H is the trivial subgroup E, then clearly H is cyclic, because in this case H is generated by the element E. So we now have to assume that H is not equal to the trivial group. Then there exists an element A to the power I not equal to E in H. This assumption now implies that H has at least one non-identity element. That non-identity element we are choosing to be A to the power I, and that non-identity element looks like this because after all we are in G where every element is an integral power of A. So this non-identity element is also an integral power of A where I is some integer. But because this is not equal to the identity, so I cannot be equal to 0. We know that A to the power 0 by definition is the identity, so I is a non-zero integer. Since we also have A to the power minus I belonging to H, we can assume that there exists a positive integer I prime for which A to the power I prime belongs to H. Being non-zero, I can either be positive or negative. If I is positive, we choose I prime to be I itself because this belongs to H. If I is negative, then we choose I prime to be minus I, then this belongs to H. So in any case, a positive integral power of A is in H. So if there is at least one such I prime, there will be a smallest such positive integer also by the well ordering principle. So let I naught be the smallest positive integer such that a to the power I naught belongs to H. Now our claim is that this a to the power I naught in fact generates H, that is the cyclic subgroup generated by this element is equal to H. That's what we will now show. So for that we have to show that every element of H is an integral power of a to the power I naught. So let a to the power j belonging to H be any element of H where j is some integer. Any element of H is after all an element of G, so it will be some power of A. So let j be the integer that gives that power. Okay. Now j is an integer and I naught is a positive integer. So we can apply the Euclidean algorithm to divide j by I naught to obtain a quotient and a remainder. Now by the Euclidean algorithm, there exist unique integers, say q and r, such that j is equal to q I naught plus r, and where r is non-negative and r is an integer non-negative and less than I naught. Then we look at the integral power a to the power r. From this equation we can replace r by this j minus q I naught, and then using the rules of exponents we can write it as a to the power j times a to the power I naught whole to the power minus q. Okay. Since a to the power j and a to the power I naught are both elements of H, a to the power j is an element of H and so is a to the power I naught, we have a to the power r equal to this times this also in H. Okay, now what have we got? We have got that this integral power of a to the power r is in H. But now you look at these inequalities, r is less than I naught. At the same time r is a non-negative integer. Now can r be a positive integer? If r becomes a positive integer, then r is a positive integer such that a to the power r belongs to H and r is less than I naught, but this would contradict the smallest nature of I naught, which has been chosen such that it's the smallest positive integer for which this belongs to H. So no power of a where the exponent is smaller than I naught and positive can also belong to H according to our choice. So because of that r cannot be positive, but r is non-negative, so the only option is that r is equal to 0. Since let us word it like this. Now minimality of I naught forces us to conclude that R is not positive since R is greater than or equal to 0, the only option is this: R must be equal to 0. But now what happens when R is 0? Hence a to the power j, which was chosen to be any element in H, now becomes a to the power, in place of j you can now write q I naught, and that is equal to, by one of the rules of exponents, this. So the arbitrary element a to the power j of H has been shown to be an integral power of the element a to the power I naught. This tells us that the element a to the power I naught generates H. Which implies that's why H is cyclic, and this completes the solution. Next one, 28. How many generators does a cyclic group of order n have? And they have said what a generator is. We already know a generator is an element that generates the group. B belonging to G is a generator if it generates the group G. Let G be a cyclic group of order n with generator, say, A. Okay. If n is equal to 1, it may happen that G has only one element. In that case, the sole element will be the identity element, and that is the only generator because that's the only element available. If n is equal to 1, then G is equal to this has only one generator. So here the number is 1. So now we can assume G to have Oh, since we have considered the case n equal to 1, we now assume n to be greater than 1. That means G has at least 2 elements. Then G in fact becomes this A square and so on up to a to the power n minus 1. Because n is greater than 1, n minus 1 is a positive integer. So in the least possible case where n is 2, this will be 1, and in that case G has 2 elements. In general, G can have more. Okay. Now we now claim that for an integer I lying between 1 and n minus 1, a to the power I is a generator of G if and only if I and n are relatively prime, that is their greatest common divisor is 1. You can ask, why are we not choosing I to be 0? If we choose I to be 0, then a to the power I becomes the identity element. The cyclic subgroup generated by the identity element only has the identity element, and since there are non-identity elements in G now because of this assumption, so E cannot generate G. So there is no point considering I equal to 0. That's why we are choosing I to, the values of I to start from 1. Okay, now we need to prove this. So here we have to prove two things, since it's an if and only if statement. So let us start off by considering say this thing for some I and proving that I and n are relatively prime, and then we will prove the converse. First, assume that a to the power I is a generator of G for some, instead of writing for some, let's write where. Okay. Since A belongs to G, which now is being generated by a to the power I, we have a equal to a to the power I whole to the power alpha for some integer alpha. Since A itself belongs to G, that is because G after all is being generated by the element A. That's how we, that's what G is. G itself is a cyclic group generated by A. So definitely A will belong to G. But at the same time, now since G is also being generated by a to the power I, so this particular element A will be an integral power of a to the power I. This gives us, using the rules of exponent, from this equation you will have a to the power I alpha minus 1 is equal to identity. So exercise 36, which we will see, we have already used it quite a number of times. So exercise 36 implies that order of A divides this integer I alpha minus 1. But we know that since G is a cyclic group of order n and A is the generator of G, so order of A is actually equal to n. So that's why n equal to order of A divides I alpha minus 1. Let n beta be equal to I alpha minus 1, because n divides I alpha minus 1, so I alpha minus 1 will be a multiple of n, where beta is an integer. Thus 1 is equal to I alpha plus n times minus beta. So you can see that we have been able to express 1 as a linear combination of I and n, where the coefficients are integers alpha and minus beta. So because of this, the GCD of I and n is equal to 1. This gives us this is equal to 1. So we have proved one half of our claim. Now the other half. Conversely, assume that the GCD is equal to 1. Then there exist integers gamma and delta, say, such that I gamma plus n delta is equal to 1. Our aim now is to prove that a to the power I generates G. Now A is equal to a to the power 1, and that 1 can be written as I gamma plus n delta. Now using the rules of exponent, this becomes a to the power I whole to the power gamma times a to the power n whole to the power delta. Now you apply the second corollary to Lagrange's theorem. Since small n is the order of the group G, so a to the power n, a being an element of G, this element would be equal to identity. So this is equal to a to the power I whole to the power gamma times e to the power delta. This is e, so this is equal to the power gamma. The power is not there. Should I switch on the fan? Okay, so now here what we are getting is that we have been able to express a as an integral power of a to the power I. So far, any integer j, in fact we can or let us just keep j arbitrary, any integer a to the power j, any integer j we have a to the power j is equal to, directly if we use the rules of exponent, we can write it as a to the power I whole to the power gamma j. So you look at this is a general element of the group, cyclic group G, that has been written as an integral power of the element a to the power I. So this tells us that G is generated by a to the power I. Thus, a to the power I is a generator of G. We have thus proved our claim in its entirety. We have proved both the statements. Now we are going to use this claim to calculate the number of generators of G. So we see that among the elements of G, I need some ink. So among the elements of G, among these elements, a to the power I is a generator if and only if I and n are relatively prime, where I is taking its value in this range starting from 1 through n minus 1. So clearly the number of generators will be the number of such i's that are less than n and relatively prime to n, and that number we already know is phi of n, where phi is Euler's pi function. So G will have that many generators. Our claim has thus been proved. From this claim, we easily see that the number of generators of G is phi of n. In fact, if you go to the actual definition of the function phi, there we have this case also. Phi of 1 is defined to be equal to 1. So you can consider the case n equal to 1. You can include the case within this formula itself, because when n is equal to 1, the number of generators is 1, which is phi of 1. So that case is also included in this. So here the solution ends. We are now going to look at some special types of groups and try to determine which of them are cyclic and which of them are not. Let UN denote the integers relatively prime to n under multiplication mod n. In exercise 15 part B of section 2.3, it is indicated that UN is a group. We look at the structure of UN as a group for some specific values of n. Okay. In the following few exercises. So UN denotes here the language is not very good. UN denotes the integers relatively prime to n under multiplication mod n. This may give you an impression that the elements in UN are integers relatively prime to n. Actually, that's not the thing. The elements in UN are congruence classes modulo n, where the representatives are integers relatively prime to n. We have already discussed about this while we solved this exercise 15b in section 2.3. So we already know that UN is a group. In fact, UN has phi of n elements in it, that is, order of UN is equal to phi of n. We already know these things. Now in the following few exercises, we are going to look at some special values of n and the corresponding groups UN and try to determine which one of them are cyclic and which are not. So here is the next exercise, exercise 29. Show that U8 is not a cyclic group. If n is 8, then the corresponding group U8 is not a cyclic group. Is not a cyclic group. Note that order of U8 is equal to phi of 8. We already know this, and phi of 8 is since you don't have the formula, I can give you the formula for calculating phi of n for any n, but for a proof of that formula we have to wait till we get to the elementary number theory, that book by Barton. So there we will come across the formula. Actually the formula is this: phi of 1 is by definition 1, so that thing is there. Now if n is a positive integer greater than 1, then by the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, n has a prime factorization. Say this is the prime factorization of n, suppose, where the p1, p2, p3 up to pt, these are distinct primes. Then phi of n is this: n times 1 minus 1 by p1 times 1 minus 1 by p2, etc., times 1 minus 1 by pt. This is the formula for calculating phi of n, number of positive integers less than n and relatively prime to n. So using this formula here for phi of 8 has only one prime divisor, that is 2. So 8 times 1 minus 1 by 2, which is 8 times 1 by 2, that is equal to 4. If you want, you can also find